welcome back to the Travel Mug Podcast. We hope your 2022 is going well so far. We're only in early days, but we can hope. We thought it would be interesting to kick off the year talking about traveling with dietary needs or restrictions or allergies. So sort of lumping all of those together. So for me, I'm a pescatarian, meaning I only eat fish or seafood periodically. Otherwise, I'm plant-based, and Peter is an omnivore. He's into all of it. Jen, what about you?
So for me, the only meat that I eat is chicken, and I've been this way my entire life. I've always hated red meat, and the smell of fish is absolutely repulsive to me. So
It's a no-no.
That's a no-no for me. We've gone through periods of being like full vegetarian, and we're currently probably like 60%-ish vegetarian at home right now. So my husband, Ryan, is allergic to nuts and shellfish, so especially tree nuts. He's also allergic to peanuts, but it's not as deathly of an allergy. And so otherwise he eats with me at home, mostly chicken and vegetarian. He also will put in some fish usually when I'm not home, so I don't have to smell it. He's so considerate.
Yes.
He'll occasionally do a red meat at like my dad's house or at a restaurant, but yeah, so that's kind of us. So we thought that we'd bring someone else into the conversation. So we have our first guest of the new year, Brianna Cook, a friend of the show. She's gluten-free and vegan. So she's going to help us talk about traveling the world with dietary restrictions. And yeah, welcome, Brianna.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. I just have to say I'm so excited to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be on to talk about this.
Hey.
No, us too. I think it's going to be really valuable because I think this is, really good information to people to have, especially as they're trying to get back out into the world. We don't know what dietary changes people have had in the last couple of years that could sort of affect how things go now. So first and foremost, this is a travel podcast, of course. We know you love travel just as much as we do. So talk to us about some of your travels that you've done so far. So you've done solo trips, etc. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I've done quite a bit of travel. I feel super fortunate about that. I do love travel, and Meggan knows this because we are very close in real life and we do talk daily. I do think about travel probably daily. I've always got ideas floating around of places I want to go. I'll see something cool online or on TV and think I need to go there someday, and I love researching. So I kind of always have an ongoing wish list of travel. So I have traveled quite a bit. I used to have a job that was in publishing sales. So I used to travel quite a bit to the US. So I've seen some pretty cool places there. Some of my bucket list places like Washington, DC. I went to Charleston. That was really cool. And I've also seen quite a bit of Canada. So Kelowna and the Okanagan was one of my favorite places that work took me as well. Aside from that, I have done some travel on my own, obviously. I've been really lucky to do a couple of trips to Europe. So right after I graduated from university, I took off on a 2-week bus tour, which I probably wouldn't do now. In your 20s, it seems like that's the good way to do it. So I definitely enjoyed that trip, but it would probably be a different type of trip if I did it today. So like I said, I've seen some pretty great places in North America. The Rockies is another one that I have to mention because I used to live in Edmonton and I feel very connected to them. So I miss the Rockies a lot. A lot of my travel dreams revolve around Europe, and a lot of the trips that I've taken involve Europe as well. So the most recent trip that I took that was really cool, I traveled by myself for 2 weeks, and I went to London to go to a festival to see some favorite bands play, and the trip just sort of grew from there. So I went from London to Poland. I stayed in Krakow for a few days. I got to see Auschwitz, and then went on to Budapest, which was amazing, and then ended that trip in Paris for a few days. So it was great. I really, really loved that, and the opportunity to travel alone, I highly recommend. And I guess my last big trip before COVID was an amazing, probably trip of a lifetime trip with my grandmother to Finland. So we spent 2 weeks traveling around Finland, and her parents were both from Finland. So I planned out this 2-week trip for my grands and we saw 5 different cities in Finland. We traveled by train and by plane, and we got to meet and stay with relatives while we were there. So that was
so special. Yeah.
was a special trip. So I've had some really cool trips I've taken. That one's definitely top of the list. And obviously, smaller trips are important too. So Meggan and I got to go to Vegas together right before the pandemic, and we saw Lady Gaga, and it was a trip, right? Meggan, neither of us had any drinks. That wasn't we did gamble and I won.
I did not.
I won on a slot machine. It was so amazing. We were freaking out. We were so excited, but we just had like a girls' weekend away and ate some delicious food. And so, yeah, I've sort of run the gamut of trips, and nothing further than Europe. South America is something I think about often. Asia, maybe someday. But yeah, I've had a lot of great travel experiences.
And what would you say would be favorite? Like if you had to pick. So Jen and I talk about Iceland a lot, and she also loves Disney. So what would you say in terms of your travels so far, would you say has been your favorite, if you could pick?
You know me, so you know how difficult this question is for me. And if you read what I wrote before the show, you know that I'm trying to sneak in like 5 different places. I do have to say I love London in the UK, obviously not London, Ontario. Not that there's anything against London, Ontario, but I've been there several times. And that city was just so great. You could go there 10 different times and see things that you didn't see, on your last trip. And it's just,
I love it too.
London's amazing. Yeah. So London's right up there. I did get to go to Vienna, which I also loved. And Meggan, I hope you get to go there when you finally get to do your European trip that got canceled. It's an amazing city. It's just so cool. But I have to say my favorite spot is Italy. So I have been dreaming about going back to Italy since my first trip to Italy, which would have been, I guess, 2005. And it's so beautiful. You see it on TV, you see it in movies. Being there, you just can't even really explain what it's like. So definitely dying to go back there. My boyfriend's been carrying around a coin in his wallet for about 3 years. We talked about where would we like to go on a big trip, and Italy was it. So he's had this coin in his wallet, and I kind of forgot that he had it, but he pulled it out the other day, and I was like, oh, you still have it. But we want to throw it in the Trevi Fountain, so we've got to get back there.
Oh, that's so awesome.
I can't wait to see though when you do, and we're gonna have to rediscuss the gluten and the cheese.
That too. Okay, so Meggan and I have joked, because Meggan knows that I want to go back to Italy, and I have joked a few times that I don't know how I would do Italy without eating gluten, because pasta, pizza, like how do you do that? I have to hope that Italy is progressive enough that they can accommodate. I mean, it's all
fingers.
I probably shouldn't eat the glutens. It's not good for me.
So how long have you been vegan?
So vegan, I think I'm at 5 years now. Meggan and I both sort of switched our eating habits around the same time. I think I was December 5 years ago, and 5-year anniversary just rolled by.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was vegetarian off and on for quite a few years before that, and did sort of switch back to eating meat for a brief period of time. It's hard when you're first starting out and trying to figure it out. And we were actually for a half marathon, Meggan and I, and I did eat some meat during that time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
We'll just go with what our bodies needed it. I mean, maybe we just needed the fuel, or we'll just go with that. I don't know.
Whatever thing was not working for me. So, and I do remember eating a delicious burger at that diner. Meggan, was it called Lori's Diner in San Francisco?
Yeah.
After half, yeah. So I have no regrets.
So talk to us then about gluten-free, because vegan's one thing and that's a choice. Gluten-free is sometimes a choice for people, but oftentimes it's more of a necessity. So sort of talk to us about that journey for you in terms of the gluten-free piece.
Right. So yes, definitely vegan is a choice. Gluten-free is a necessity for me. So I am also type 1 diabetic, and strangely, everything is connected. So your endocrine system, gluten issues are tied up with that. So after, I think it was about 20 years of being diabetic and in very good control, I had a couple of serious low blood sugar incidents that required an ambulance. So I woke up with, paramedics in my room and had these severe lows. So we ran a bunch of tests, and there was a connection to a gluten issue. So I have had a scope. I did get checked for celiac, but it was inconclusive. but the blood results showed that there was something there. So that was sort of it for me. I just chose to eliminate it completely and just eat gluten-free now.
Right.
Yeah. And that was, I guess, about 11 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you've been gluten-free longer than you've been vegan. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I may have actually gone vegan sooner if it weren't for the gluten part. It was super intimidating choosing
Yeah.
to.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can totally see that. So tell us like about your first trip after being vegan and gluten-free kind of together. How did you manage that?
So the first one where I was both would have been this last solo trip that I did to Europe by myself. Totally fine. I had all the tools I needed to plan, and there were lots of different options for me. That trip was sort of like easy peasy. The first trip that I took after going gluten free was a disaster. Yeah, it was a really tough learning experience because I wasn't prepared. I was on a trip. We were in Scotland first, and then we ended up going to Prague, and that was the Vienna trip where I ate sausages from vendors on buns. So that trip, it was just really difficult. I was pretty new to it. I didn't really understand how imperative it was to plan. Planning is so important when you have any kind of dietary restrictions. If you're not prepared, you're setting yourself up to fail. So I don't really know what I was doing. Probably wasn't as serious about it as I should have been. And I was also traveling with a group of people that they were close, but they weren't like Meggan and I close. So when we were having discussions about, well, where's the group going tonight? I didn't always feel like I wanted to be that person who's like, hi, I can't eat gluten, sort of let things slide. And yeah, it deteriorated. And there were a few times I had to pump myself up with some sugar and really learned a lot from that trip. And, the way I plan for trips now, a lot of it is based on what I learned then.
Well, that's what I was actually just going to ask you. And I think that can be really helpful for people. So what does planning for that mean? So you mentioned Europe, but really, in Canada, hopefully we have, or we can feel comfortable maybe with knowing what the everyday options are, but like going to Europe, and I know there's apps that you've used to find things. So talk to us about planning for a trip being vegan and gluten-free. What does that look like? What can people do to plan ahead? What are some resources, or what do you do?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. So at the beginning, I sort of talked to you about how I love to daydream about travel. A lot of times that involves social media. So Instagram, something will pop up and I'll see, a cool place or a cool city. So typically what I do when I'm planning travel is I go to Pinterest. I will start a Pinterest board and I just drop everything in there. So I'll find places I want to go, landmarks I want to see, but at the same time, I'm always thinking of food too. And part of that is because I need to, I'm just so I can be prepared, but I also really like food.
Yeah. Same.
One of the coolest things about traveling is seeing what kind of food other places have, and going into the grocery stores in foreign countries. I love that. Like, take me to a place for 24 hours and guaranteed half of it will be spent finding cool food to eat or looking at grocery stores because I just love it. So I'm always planning and prepping through Pinterest and Instagram. I'll do a hashtag search and find cool places that way. There are some restaurants I discovered in Paris through Instagram and just sort of looking at where people were eating, what they were doing. So those are sort of the main things I do. I also just really love reading maps. I know that's weird.
No, we don't think it's weird.
No, you're amongst your people. It's fine.
It's so great. I mean, before Google was like the thing, I would look at atlases or road maps and, an old globe and just kind of spin it and pick a place. So now with Google, you can just pick a spot and zoom right in, and if you're going to be in a certain place in a neighborhood, just expand on that and have a look to see what's there. So that's usually what I do. Those are sort of my main things. There is an app that you can use, and I know that Megan's familiar with it too because we've both used it. I think you may have used it in Iceland.
Yeah.
Happy Cow. So it's pretty dynamic. It's a really neat tool. It will list all of these places that you can go to in a certain city. So for example, if I was going to Dubai, I could type in Dubai and it would show me a list of all of the restaurants. You can filter it out by purely vegan, vegetarian, omni. You can search by meal type. The great thing about that app is that you get reviews from actual people. So people will post pictures of menus, or they'll post a straight up review, good or bad, about the place. So you really have an idea of where you should be spending your time. And that just reminded me too, menus, that's another thing that's hugely important. So when I'm on Google, usually if I find a place on the map, I'll go on the site and check out the menu. And Megan, you know I do that here all the time too. I'm always looking at menus. I need to know what A, I can eat, and B, I want to eat. So the menu thing is super important if you're going to a country where perhaps English isn't the first language. If you're looking at a menu and there's no English version of the menu, you probably need to be prepared to not be ordering something in English. So maybe that influences your choice about going or not.
Yeah, I think
Agreed.
that definitely makes sense. And I also love looking at menus online. It's like, I love it.
I know, me too. It's like a thrill. It's like shopping for things you'll get one day and it just happens to be food.
Yes.
I love
Also mentioned too, I just quickly looked at my notes. I don't want to miss this. Something that I really love doing is once I find a place in a city, I am not afraid to go back to it. So there were a few places on this last trip that I went to where I found a place that was really, really great, and I would visit it more than once. And it's especially great if you're scared about the safety of food. So if you're not sure if a place can accommodate you, if you find one that does, and you know for a fact that you're eating something that's okay for you to eat and it's delicious, why not go back? Yeah. So there were a few places that I did that with for sure on this last trip. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say is like your biggest challenge of traveling with like dietary needs or restrictions?
Definitely just being prepared. And, it sort of goes in hand with being a vegan, gluten-free person anyway. In my regular life, I have to plan a lot. You can't always just roll up to a restaurant or fast food place and grab to eat, right? So just being prepared. Like I always have snacks with me, not just for the plane, but I like to bring things that I can have with me while I'm out. Usually while I travel, I have a jam-packed day. And so I always make sure I have some snacks with me just to make sure I'm eating. And sometimes if you don't want to actually have breakfast, you can just have like fruit and a granola bar or something like that. So being prepared in those ways definitely helps. It's also good to know where your grocery stores or markets are. That's really important, just to make sure that you have access to certain things like fresh produce, but on that same note, make sure that you're prepared for what you're going to find there. When I was in Budapest, the grocery store right across the street from my Airbnb, I was like, well, this is perfect. I'll just go in there and get a few supplies. But all of the ingredients were in Hungarian, which I don't. So I had a problem with that.
Yeah. Do you tend to book places with a kitchen? Like, is that kind of one of your tactics? Yeah.
Absolutely. If I'm going somewhere for a few days and I know I'll have time, I always try to book an Airbnb that has a kitchen.
Yeah.
Definitely. And another thing too for you, I'm sure, in terms of planning is you're not just, vegan and gluten-free, you're also diabetic. So making sure that you have those things on hand in case you have lows or whatever is really key as well. And something when we're traveling together is always on my mind as well. I'm like, does she have Coke? Does she have, a juice pack? Just being sure that sort of I know, just being sure that you're taken care of in that way as well. So that has to be why there's planning. But do you think that in any way being diabetic first helped you in terms of planning for these things too? Do you think that was just always your mindset anyway?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, diabetes is a daily, minute by minute, hour by hour thing. You have to be prepared. Luckily, my control is great, but I work hard at that. And even though I do, sometimes things happen, like, especially if you're traveling and you're walking around a city, if you're expending a lot of energy, maybe your blood sugar is going to be a bit lower. So I am always in the mindset of be prepared. I actually worked with someone who her boyfriend was diabetic and they had gone on this amazing trip to Italy and he wasn't prepared. They got to their B&B, which was like a village outside of any main city, and he didn't have any juice or any kind of emergency stash, as I call it. And his blood sugar went low in the night and they completely panicked and didn't know what to do. And I think eventually had to she left and had to walk and go get something like, and they ended up canceling their trip because they were so unnerved by the whole experience.
Oh,
Yeah.
I get
being
I get
prepared.
scary, but preparation is so key. Yeah.
Definitely. And would you say, is there anything, since you've, made this switch to vegan, obviously the gluten-free plays a part in it, that's kind of surprised you while traveling with these sort of needs or preferences?
Yeah, I mean, again, it is scary. I guess that one thing I sort of am surprised about is that I haven't been glutened more. That gluten-free people call it gluten. It did happen to me once when I was in Krakow. I had found this really great burger place, but they did not speak English at all. They had a menu that was in English, and you would just kind of point and say what you needed. The first 2 nights it was fine. The third night I definitely had a bun that was gluten. So, but again, that's the only experience that I can think of. So that's sort of a surprise too, because there does seem to be a lot of care and safety put into these restrictions, regardless of which country you're in. And then also just the availability. Like, these places are not behind the times. There are so many options. These signs everywhere in London and Camden Market. I mean, it was like a mecca. I was like, oh, where do first, and Finland actually really surprised me. It's just life there. You're not even like a gluten-free vegan person. You're just run of the mill, so
Right.
everything in the grocery store is readily available and even priced similarly. So no shortage of options at all.
that's
Yeah.
so
Definitely.
awesome. And I feel like right now is probably the best time ever to be gluten-free and vegan, because there's been such a huge push of a lot of people who have gone gluten-free, who are going vegan or going plant-based or like going more vegetarian. And there's just more options now than there ever has been before. And yeah, like you said, like they're not behind the times in Europe, right? Like they're not
No.
stuck
No, I mean,
like everywhere is kind of pushing forward together.
And
So
can you imagine there were people that were vegans or vegetarians, not so much gluten-free probably, but in the 60s and the 70s, and they had to like make their own way in the world. And we're like pampered people now in terms of like these needs or choices that we're making. And I think we're so lucky to be in this time where you're not like, oh no, like she's coming with us and she's eating vegan. No, there's restaurants where it's all combined, or vegan restaurants are just delicious and everybody can still find something that tastes good. And I think that it's a brilliant time to sort of, and I can imagine it's only going to get better from here. So, and
I agree 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Jen, I know you wanted to talk a bit about this too, because Ryan's case in particular is a little bit different than sort of obviously gluten-free for some people. If you eat it, it's like life-threatening and whatnot, or whatnot. But what about like actual allergies in terms of like nuts and things that are a little more prevalent, I guess, out there?
Yeah. So like it's maybe not more difficult, but it's a lot more risky, right? Like it can be a life or death situation. So it can be a little bit scary. And I mean, the first time Ryan and I traveled together was really more like US, and we were pretty comfortable like going to the US. But the first time, like when we went to Iceland, I was scared, especially with shellfish. Like he's highly allergic to shellfish. He's like touching it and then touching his face. He's going to get hives. Like it's very stressful. And so we really didn't eat out in Iceland at all, also because it was expensive. And so there was that. We got a place in the kitchen and we went to the grocery store and we cooked our own food. We ate at a cafe that I had been to before, because I had gone to Iceland 2 years previous to that with my stepmom, and had eaten at this cafe and kind of knew the menu, or at least what it kind of looked like, and knew that it wasn't really shellfishy. And so Iceland was nice because most people spoke English as well. So at least you could talk to them. So I want to talk about some tips to like traveling with life-threatening food allergies. So you can buy or make allergy cards with like a local translation of the allergies. So like you can show it to your server and be like, this, if you don't speak the language, right? Like, please don't.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Have you done that? That's very smart.
We haven't just because like we've always traveled to an English speaking or a French speaking country where we speak both those languages, but I've heard of a lot of people doing them, and sometimes they'll just bring them even back to the chef so that the chef can see them. Little like laminated cards. Yes, bring multiple EpiPens, people, because you don't know. Bring lots. Like we said before, like prepackaged snacks from home that you know are safe are really nice to have. Know the local emergency phone number in case you need to call. Hopefully you don't, but like it's not 911 everywhere. So just make sure you know that, and have medical insurance when you travel in case you do need to call.
Right.
Hopefully you don't, but you know.
Exactly.
I will say that Disney has been one of the best places that we have traveled with for like dietary needs. And it's actually really funny that Brianna, because my best friend is also gluten-free and type 1 diabetic, which is just a really weird coincidence.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we went to Disney, the four of us. So me and my husband and her husband in December 2019. So, and that trip, my husband's allergic to nuts and shellfish, and he was eating plant-based at that time. And then my friend with the gluten allergy. So they're really, really great. When you book your dining reservations at Disney, you can click off what allergies are at the table. They'll bring you special allergy menus that say like has the like corn, like top 8 kind of allergies. They'll kind of list them and what doesn't have in each dish. Or the chef can come out and talk to you if your situation is a little bit more complicated. They're really, really great. And they go above and beyond to make sure that you're safe and that you get something that you like. And like they've made stuff off menu. My husband wanted something at a restaurant that wasn't plant-based, and they like changed the whatever, like I can't even remember what it was now, but I remember them like kind of special making something so that it would accommodate him. And your meal comes out with a little stick that says allergy on it. So you know that they remember.
Special stick.
Right. It's always like, oh, my stick.
That's great though, because I have been in so many situations where I'm like, is that really? And you ask them because you're scared, you hear about, like you said, especially with an allergy that could be life-threatening, like you need to know it's a risk. So that's great to hear.
Yeah, I highly, highly recommend Disney with people with food allergies. And I'm in a couple of Facebook groups that are specifically for Disney and food allergies. And there's people who can't eat a list of 20 things or something, and they're still able to be accommodated and eat safely. And so, it
must be scary out there though, like with life-threatening allergies. Like my niece, apparently her doctor's never seen anyone like more allergic to nuts. And so even when she comes to like my parents' place, she's even like, even though my mother knows, she's like, so this is good. And so that's in someone's home who loves her. So going out into the world and trying to like navigate that and order food must be like terrifying when you know X, Y, or Z could like send you to the hospital or kill you or something.
Yeah. And like living in Atlantic, Canada with a shellfish.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my goodness. So Brianna, before we let you go, like any parting words or anything you want to share with people who are maybe getting ready to travel for the first time after finding out, they can't eat gluten, or maybe over this time they've changed the way they eat and maybe it's plant-based or vegan or whatever the case may be. Any tips for them sort of on the way out the door?
Yeah, I mean, just don't be afraid. Obviously, be cognizant, go into things knowing what you need to be prepared for, and obviously be careful and cautious of any allergies or, any of your restrictions that you have. But, the world is quite literally your oyster. There's so much to see out there. And
unless you're Ryan, it's not your oyster.
I always do that.
But the cool thing too is that when you're doing all this research and prep and, you're able and willing to go to local places in these different foreign cities to eat, sometimes you'll even discover some really cool, like local cuisine. So it's all part of it. It's all tied in together, and just don't be afraid, do a little bit of research, get yourself a Pinterest board, really make the most of being in a new city and finding, new ways to eat while respecting what you've chosen to do.
That's really great advice. I love that. And I think too, and I think not being scared just because you're choosing to eat differently makes a big difference, because you're right. Like the door could be open to something, I mean, we didn't know existed in terms of food, and flavor is really what's important. And so as long as you're finding something that sort of meets what you're looking for, but tastes great, I also would go back to somewhere twice, three times if I knew I was getting what I wanted. Like, I think all of that, what you've shared is really great advice, even for people who are picky eaters, even like, because you're on a vacation, you're like, I should be going to multiple places to eat. But at the end of the day, if this one place makes you happy and you can go 5 times, just go. Like, I mean, I think that's really great advice.
There are meals that I would literally fly across the world to get.
Same.
There's the burger that I ate in Budapest. I had it every single day that I was there. It was called the Juicy Lucy burger, and it was vegan. So good. And there was curry in Paris. And like, honestly, like, just, if I had been too afraid, I wouldn't have experienced those. So just be cognizant, but enjoy would be my.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, now I'm hungry.
I know.
Wow.
Hungry yet.
Well, that is it for the episode today, guys. Thank you so much, Brianna, for joining us. I think this was a great episode, especially as people are hopefully 2022, fingers crossed, getting back out there. If you did enjoy today's episode, please consider subscribing so you don't miss a darn thing. Share the podcast with a travel loving pal. You can now leave reviews on Apple and Spotify. So 2 places to say you love us.
Yes.
And you can obviously find our episodes on travelmugpodcast.com. Say hi to us on Facebook and Instagram. And we'd love to hear from you, especially if you're out there with some dietary needs or anything that you want to share with us, any tips that maybe we don't know about yet. We would love to hear from you. So until next time, friends, bye. Bye, Brianna.